Have you ever noticed that big blank page between the Old and New Testaments in your Bible? It's not just empty space. It represents 400 years of history, a period often called the intertestamental period or the 400 years of silence. Why silence? Because for 4 centuries, it seems God didn't speak through prophets as he had before. The last prophetic voice we hear in the Old Testament is Malachi, around 430 BC. Then, nothing. For generations the people of Israel waited, holding on to the prophecies of a coming Messiah but without a new word from God. But just because the prophets were silent doesn't mean history stood still. In fact, these 400 years were some of the most dramatic and transformative in world history, and they perfectly set the stage for the arrival of Jesus. It's a story of empires rising and falling, brutal wars, cultural clashes, and incredible acts of faith. So what really happened during this mysterious period? Let's uncover the story that the Bible doesn't explicitly tell, but that is essential to understanding the world Jesus was born into. Our story begins with the fall of the Persian Empire. The prophet Daniel had actually foreseen this, predicting the rise of a powerful kingdom from the west. That kingdom was led by none other than Alexander the Great. In 333 BC, Alexander's Macedonian and Greek armies swept through the ancient world. He conquered the mighty Persian Empire, and Judea, the land of the Jews, fell under his control. Now, Alexander was a brilliant military strategist, but he was also a student of the philosopher Aristotle. He deeply believed in the superiority of Greek culture, or Hellenism. His goal wasn't just to conquer land, but to spread Greek language, philosophy, and lifestyle everywhere he went. This process is called Hellenization. For the Jews, this was a massive culture shock. Suddenly, their world was filled with Greek gymnasiums, theaters, and new ideas that often conflicted with their devotion to God and the Torah. The Greek language, Koine Greek, became the common language of the empire. This is incredibly important because, centuries later, it would be the language the New Testament was written in, allowing the gospel to spread rapidly. Alexander's reign was shockingly brief. He died in 323 BC at just 32 years old, and his vast empire was torn apart by his generals, known as the Diadochi. For the next century and a half, Judea became a geopolitical football, caught between 2 rival Greek dynasties. To the south in Egypt were the Ptolemies, and to the north in Syria were the Seleucids. Initially, the Ptolemies ruled over Judea. For the most part, they were relatively tolerant. They allowed the Jews to practice their religion freely. It was during this period of Ptolemaic rule, around 250 BC in Alexandria, Egypt, that one of the most significant literary achievements of the ancient world took place: the translation of the Hebrew scriptures into Greek. This translation is known as the Septuagint. The legend goes that 72 Jewish scholars worked independently and came up with identical translations. Whether that's true or not, the Septuagint was a game changer. It made the Jewish scriptures accessible to Jews who no longer spoke Hebrew, and crucially, to non-Jews throughout the Greek-speaking world. It was the Bible that many of the apostles and early Christians would read and quote. This period of relative peace, however, was about to come to a violent end. Around 200 BC, the Seleucid Empire to the north, led by Antiochus III, finally defeated the Ptolemies and took control of Judea. At first, things were okay. But then, a new king came to the throne, and his name would become infamous in Jewish history: Antiochus IV Epiphanes. Epiphanes means God manifest. Antiochus IV saw himself as a living God, and he was determined to stamp out the Jewish religion and forcibly Hellenize the people. He wasn't just encouraging Greek culture, he was commanding it. He outlawed Jewish customs. Circumcision, observing the Sabbath, and possessing a copy of the Torah were all made punishable by death. The breaking point came in 167 BC. Antiochus marched into Jerusalem, stormed the temple, the holiest site in Judaism, and desecrated it. He erected an altar to the Greek god Zeus in the temple and sacrificed a pig on it, an animal considered unclean in Jewish law. This act was the ultimate abomination, a horrific sacrilege that Daniel had also prophesied as the abomination of desolation. For the Jewish people, this was a declaration of war on God himself. But out of this darkness, a fire of resistance was lit. In a small village called Modiin, a Seleucid official tried to force an elderly priest named Mattathias to offer a pagan sacrifice. Mattathias refused. When another Jew stepped forward to comply, Mattathias, filled with righteous anger, killed both the man and the official. He and his 5 sons, including the famous Judah, fled to the hills and called for all who were zealous for God's law to join them. This was the beginning of the Maccabean revolt. What followed was a seemingly impossible guerrilla war. Led by Mattathias' son, Judah, who was nicknamed Maccabeus, meaning the hammer. This small band of faithful Jewish rebels took on the might of the Seleucid army. Against all odds, they won. Through brilliant tactics and unwavering faith, they drove the Seleucids out of Jerusalem. In 164 BC, 3 years to the day after its desecration, Judah Maccabeus and his followers reclaimed the temple. They cleansed it, rebuilt the altar, and rededicated it to God. The celebration lasted for 8 days, a festival that is still celebrated by Jewish people today as Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights. This victory was monumental. It preserved the Jewish religion and identity from being wiped out. It established an independent Jewish kingdom, the Hasmonean dynasty, which would rule for about a century. During this Hasmonean period, new Jewish religious groups and political parties emerged. Groups you'll definitely recognize from the New Testament. The Pharisees appeared, a group of lay people deeply committed to meticulously observing not just the written law of Moses, but also a growing body of moral teachings. They believed this was the way to maintain holiness in a corrupt world. Then there were the Sadducees. They were the wealthy, aristocratic priestly class, more politically connected and more open to Hellenistic culture. They held power in the temple, but were theologically conservative in a different way. They only accepted the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, and rejected concepts like the resurrection of the dead and the existence of angels. The tension and arguments between these two groups are a constant feature of the Gospels. But the independence of the Hasmonean dynasty was not to last. Internal strife and civil war weakened the kingdom, leaving it vulnerable to a new rising power from the west, a republic that was becoming an empire. In 63 BC, the Roman general Pompey the Great marched into Jerusalem, and Judea fell under the control of Rome. The 400 years of silence, which began with the fall of one empire, Persia, was now ending under the shadow of another, Rome. The Romans were masters of administration and engineering. They built roads that connected their vast empire, making travel safer and faster than ever before. This network of roads would later be the very highways that carried the apostles and missionaries, like Paul, across the world to spread the gospel. The Romans also established a period of relative peace and order known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. Under Roman rule, a ruthless but effective local king named Herod the Great came to power. He was the one who, in an attempt to impress the Jews and glorify his own name, massively renovated and expanded the Second Temple in Jerusalem. This was the very temple that Jesus would walk in, teach in, and cleanse. So now, let's step back and look at the world that has been prepared. We have a common language, Greek, that allows ideas to spread universally. We have the Jewish scriptures translated into that language, so Gentiles can read the prophecies. We have a network of Roman roads to travel on and a period of relative peace. We have a Jewish people scattered across the world, with synagogues in many cities, but who are all longing for a Messiah, a king who will deliver them. We have religious groups like the Pharisees and Sadducees debating the law and the prophets. And we have the land of Israel itself under the boot of a foreign empire. With a magnificent temple in Jerusalem at the center of its life, everything was in place. The stage was perfectly set. The prophecies of the Old Testament were still hanging in the air, waiting to be fulfilled. And after 400 years of historical upheaval and divine silence, the silence was about to be broken. Not by the voice of a prophet, but by the cry of a baby and an angel in heaven. The arrival of John the Baptist and then Jesus Christ himself didn't happen exactly. It happened at the precise moment in history that these 400 years had begun. It was the fullness of time. The silence was over, and a new chapter in God's story was about to begin. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey through history fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. See you next time.